When was the last time that you remember truly feeling the power of a story? When I was 7 years old, my family immigrated from a skinny long country in South America called Chile, all the way here to the United States. And I still remember the first few days being here. It was a great adventure. New language, new people, new food. But as the weeks went by, I quickly realized I wasn't understanding anything, and I couldn't speak the language. It was terrifying. And once I started school, it didn't get any better. Instead of speaking up, I actually went into a shell. And I didn't want to communicate. I didn't want to speak because I was scared of what people would think of me. And I still remember one Monday morning, I show up early to class and I sit at my desk and my teacher, she comes up to me. She had actually learned a few Spanish words to try to communicate with me. She says, "Hola, Cesar, ¿cómo estás?" And I replied, "Very good, teacher. Thank you. I learned something too." And then she continued, "Cesar, today in class, you tell a story, contar historia." I looked at her confused. And I said what any 7-year-old Spanish-speaking kid would say in that situation. "No entiendo. Sorry, teacher, no entiendo." And she just smiled at me. And with her thumb up, she said, "Hey, you can do it." And she started the class. And she randomly started calling kids to get up in front of the class, tell a story. And I was thinking in my mind, she's not going to call on me. Because I said no entiendo, and I even said, "Sorry, teacher." She's not going to call on me. And then all of a sudden, I hear the most terrifying words. "Cesar, it's your turn." Now, what would you feel in that situation? What would you think? What would you do? What would you do in that situation? I got up slowly and started walking towards the front of the class. And I just remember as I was walking, my heart was racing. My hands, they were sweating. And my knees were shaking. And when I finally got to the front of the class and I looked at all my little classmates, about 30 of them, they were all staring back at me. And in that moment, my mind went blank. And I just stared, and they stared back. And all of a sudden, like a flash to my mind, I remembered a little story. And it was a simple personal story of something I had done with my family a few days before. And I tried to tell that story to the best of my ability with my very broken English that I had at that time. And after I finished, I went and sat down. And I just looked at the ground. And when I was looking at the ground, I was thinking, "Oh, Cesar, your story was horrible. It wasn't a good story. Plus, didn't even understand what you said. Don't even speak well. Dumb. Why'd you do it?" And after a few seconds of self-loathing, I finally got the courage to look up. And when I looked up, I was shocked. Because all my little classmates were staring back at me. And they weren't just staring back. They were actually all going like this. The little thumbs up. As if they were saying, "Good job. You did it." Now that moment, over 30 years ago, that moment changed everything for me. Because that was the first time that I can truly remember this, that I felt the power of telling a story. And since then, I've had many more opportunities to tell stories, and every time I do, I fall more and more in love with the art of storytelling, to the point where today, professionally, what I do is I train leaders and entrepreneurs on how to become great storytellers. And the more I work with leaders and entrepreneurs, the more I come to this realization that stories are powerful. And stories are powerful because when we tell them, they have the power to connect. They have the power to persuade. They have the power to teach. And they have the power to inspire. And the good news, because there are good news, is that you can all unlock that power. We all have the potential to unlock that power because every single one of you is also a storyteller. Yes, we are all storytellers. And we're all storytellers because it's something that we've actually been doing for a long, long time. Human beings have been telling stories for over 50,000 years. So we can even say that now we're hardwired neurologically to not only listen to stories and pay attention, but also to tell stories. We love telling stories. And this is something that we can all do. And that is why usually the best communicators are also the best storytellers. Now, there are bad news. The bad news is that even though we are all storytellers, even though we all have the potential to unlock the power of stories, very few people actually do. And it's not because we don't want to. It's usually because we just don't know how to. So today, I'm going to help you with this. And today I'm going to share with you a simple 4-step process to help you not only tell good stories, but be able to unlock the full power stories. So are you ready for this? Here we go. The first step to be able to tell good stories is to understand that every story will always start with a context. Context. Now, the context is just the beginning of a story. Every story has a beginning. And to make it even simpler, in the context, you just need to answer 3 questions. 3 questions. First, when did this story that you're telling, when did it occur? When did it happen? Did it happen in 1990? Did it happen in 2001? Did it happen a month ago? Did it happen a day ago? And this question is important because it helps your audience to start visualizing and start engaging more with your story. Now, the second question is where? Where did this story occur? Where did it happen? Did it happen at school? Did it happen at work? Did it happen while you were on vacation? And both of these questions, the when and where, are just to help your audience to start imagining and going into your story. Because there is a third question, which is actually the most important question in the context. The third question is who? Who did this story happen to? And with who, I mean, who is the main character of the story? Because every story will always have a main character. And the reason why this happens is because we connect to the story through the main character of the story. When we're listening to a story, we start hearing our own personal story through the story of the main character. So the objective in the context of a story is always to create connection. We want people to quickly connect with the story, and we do that through the main character of the story. Now, once we're able to accomplish that, we move on to the second step. And the second step is the obstacle. There is always an obstacle. There's always some kind of difficulty or challenge, something that has to make it hard for the main character to achieve his or her goal. And we as human beings, we're attracted to obstacles. We love conflict. We love to pay attention to conflict because our brain wants to learn what things to avoid. Now, the only warning that I give you here is when we're talking about storytelling and we're talking about an obstacle, it doesn't have to be a Hollywood obstacle. It doesn't have to be life or death. It can be something so simple as having to get up in front of your class when you're 7 years old to speak in public. The simple and sincere obstacles are actually the ones that we tend to connect with the most. Now, the secret ingredient to really make an obstacle or a conflict come to life is vulnerability. we need to show vulnerability when we're telling our stories. And vulnerability, understand it as the willingness or the disposition to show or express your emotions. That is vulnerability understood from a psychological viewpoint. It's just the willingness to express and show emotions. And the more emotions we show when we're telling our stories, the more emotion your audience will feel through the story that you're telling. And that is the objective. That is the objective and the obstacle. We want the audience to feel emotion. Because the more emotion people feel, the more emotionally invested they will be, and the more willing they will be to be persuaded by the story that you're telling. So once we're able to accomplish this in the obstacle, get people to feel emotions, now we move on to the third step. And the third step is the solution. And the solution is what we also know as the happy ending. Every story needs to have a happy ending. All the stories we've ever heard ever since we were kids always finish with a happy ending. When we're talking about storytelling, especially our own personal stories, sometimes stories have the happy ending, the typical, how did he or she solve the problem? But sometimes in our own personal stories, we have stories of failure. Maybe we got fired. Maybe we're telling a story of losing a loved one. And you could ask yourself, well, how is that going to have a happy ending? Well, when stories don't have the typical happy ending, we can transform that story into a happy ending by answering the question of what did he or she, referring to the main character, learn from having gone through that experience. Because ultimately, the goal here in the solution is to show the change or transformation that the main character has gone through. And just a little secret, that is the essence of every story. Every story you've ever heard, you've ever told, or you'll ever hear in the future is just trying to show you the transformation or the change of a character. And this is where we learn. This is where we're able to teach through what the main character went through, things that the audience can take away. Now, with these 3 steps that I've shared with you so far, you have enough to create a good story. You have a context to be able to create connection. You have an obstacle to show emotion and get the audience to feel emotion. And you have a solution to show the change, the transformation of the character. Now, there's one final step, which to me makes this whole process powerful. Because the final step is what we know as application. And the application is all about the audience. Because in the application is where we'll share the idea or the message that we want the audience to take away. You see, stories are just a vehicle, very good vehicle. But ultimately, what we're really trying to get through is an idea or a message that will not only be understood neurologically, but also emotionally. Because when you're telling stories, people are asking themselves, well, why should I care? You're telling me a story about what happened to you when you were a child. Great, but why should I care? Or how does this apply to me? So in the application is where we connect the idea or the message that we're trying to get across to the audience. That idea or message that will help the audience rise above the waves, rise above their own tribulations, their own difficulties. Because the objective or the goal in the application is to be able to inspire the audience to take action. We want the audience to take action. That is the ultimate goal of any great story, of any memorable story. It's not just if the story is good, it's what is the impact that it can have on the audience. And that, my friends, is what I call la cosa más importante, or the most important thing. Cosa means thing in English. And I want you to remember that word, cosa. Because next time you have to tell a story, ask yourself, what is that cosa or thing that Cesar shared with me? What is that cosa? Cosa. Because if you remember the word cosa, you will also remember the 4 steps. C, you'll remember that your story needs to have a context to be able to create connection. O, you'll remember that your story needs an obstacle to be able to get your audience to feel emotions. S, you'll remember that your story always needs to have a solution to show the change or transformation of the main character. And A, your story needs to have some kind of application, some message or idea that will inspire your audience to take action. And that is la cosa más importante. Now, I am so thankful that over 30 years ago, a teacher, my teacher, challenged me to get up in front of my class and to unlock the power of stories. And today, I want to challenge you, because you will have opportunities to share a story, whether it be at work, at school, with your friends. You will have that opportunity. And when you do, I want you to get up and walk to the front. Even if your knees are shaky, even if your heart is beating, even if your hands are sweating. And I promise you two things if you do this. First, you will probably realize that you're a better storyteller than what you thought. And that's great. That's a great feeling. And second, and most importantly, you will unlock to some degree the power of storytelling and the power of your stories. So next time you have the opportunity to share a story, your story, I want you to remember that you can do it. Thank you.